Welcome to the Psychology World podcast. I'm Connor Whiteley, bringing you psychology news, articles, and other interesting psychology-related articles. Where I can find the podcast notes and more interesting psychology-related things, and you can get your free 8 psychology book box set at connorwhiteley.net. Now let's get on to the show. Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 87 of the Psychology World podcast with me, Connor Whiteley. And today's episode is on comment on the psychology of religion and psychology to the programs reflection. So we're still continuing with these psychology reflections, and hopefully you're really enjoying them. So this one is actually quite an interesting one because these two reflections, they're quite short but they're quite interesting, and they're definitely quite food for thought. So because this is a little in between episode, there's not a personal update or a official sponsor, but the week this goes out, the Elemental Psychology would have come out though. This is the 3rd edition book, and this book I was really surprised at when I wrote it, because it's such an in-depth, such an engaging, really easy to understand book that, considering I'm not the massive fan of the Elemental Psychology, I've really made this book interesting for me and also for you. So it's a big book. It's actually one of my longest psychology books, but it's really interesting, and especially the last half of it is you can really apply it to everyday life, and I really enjoyed that. So hopefully you will too. That's the Elemental Psychology 3rd edition, available on all major ebook retailers, and then you can order the paperback, large print and the hardback version from Amazon or your local bookstore. So we're moving on to the reflection. So the first one is on the psychology of religion. This is from Friday the 23rd of October 2020. This week I finished reading a new book on the psychology of religion. Now originally I wasn't going to do a reflection because I tend to avoid religion and politics, because they are best to avoid in general because of the division that they can create. Although I do want to do a brief reflection. So the book mentioned a lot of interesting things, like children aren't inheritably more likely to believe in God. This is supported by Piaget's theory, as the God concept is rather abstract, and children don't tend to form abstract thoughts until age 11. Also, it mentioned that religion doesn't naturally make you more moral. And there are other factors, as well as it expanded upon topics of religious socialization and the restrictive morals of religion. Anyway, linking to this book to clinical practice, I want to stress that when we're in a clinical setting and therapy sessions, we must respect people's beliefs, and we must not be prejudiced or discriminate against them. It is their right to believe. Therefore, in clinical settings, we must coachly adapt our sessions and be mindful of our reflexivity. So, that's when you think about yourself, and also you reflect on your own actions and your beliefs. So, to try and ensure that the client benefits as much as possible from the therapy. Consequently, if we need to change our therapies slightly to make it more approachable and how the setting can make the client more comfortable, then we should, or at least consider it. At the end of the day, it's our job as clinical psychologists to help the client live a better, happier life, and their religion will impact this in one way or another. So, as you can probably tell, I didn't quite know where I was going with that, because I needed to link it to clinical practice for my university course, but I thought it was quite an interesting thing though, because the Psychology of Religion book, if you go on connorwhiteley.net/podcast, go to today's episode, then there will be the reference of the book. And it is quite an interesting book though, because it definitely sort of increased my awareness about the potential benefits of religion. So that I thought was quite interesting. So this is another reflection I did on Friday the 30th of October 2020. Okay, and this one's weird. Well, for me, at least. So usually I'm not much of a fan of psychology TV programs, because 99% of them tend to get psychology completely wrong. However, I recently discovered a new drama, I guess you could call it that, and it was very good, and it was called Evil. In short, it's about a clinical psychologist who is hired by the Catholic Church to assess miracles and other supposed holy things like a demonic possession. Also, I like it because there's some pretty dark scenes in it. So, however, the reason why I'm talking about it in a reflective log is that because this a fictional program clearly shows how mental conditions can manifest, as well as lead people to believe that they're demonically possessed, where they could just be psychotic or suffer from schizophrenia. Overall, this highlights the need within clinical psychology to be respectful of other people's beliefs, and that we need to acknowledge that mental conditions can manifest in different ways. Finally, I quite liked that this program shows briefly the pressure that some legal professionals put on a clinical psychologist as expert witness to say the right thing. I know that this is rare, don't get me wrong about that, but it reminds us that we should never bow down to that pressure, or we risk the integrity of clinical psychology, let alone ourselves. So hopefully that's given you some food for thought for today's episode. So I really hope that you enjoyed it, as always. And this is what I quite like about these little reflection episodes, though, right? Because I always love to hear your thoughts on it. Like, what do you think about this TV program, and also about the psychology of religion? So you can always email me, connorwhiteley@connorwhiteley.net. You can always leave a comment at the show notes at connorwhiteley.net/podcast, or you can always tweet me on Twitter at sci-fi-whiteley. Love to hear from you. And also please check out Dead Elemental Psychology. Ebooks and all the usual places, hardback, paperback and large print version from Amazon or your local bookstore. So have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to see the show notes, then please go to connorwhiteley.net. And if you want a free 8-book psychology box set, then please go to connorwhiteley.net. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.